Okay, so now we are on Castle Rock, chapter 11, another very disturbing chapter. Um, so it starts with only the four boys left now. Ralph, Piggy, and Sam and Eric. Sam Nerrick, they call him. And everybody else has defected over to Jack. And the fire um, is stolen, essentially, because they took Piggy's glasses. Now, Piggy is, for all means and purposes, blind. Um, and, um, but Piggy decides that what? Piggy decides that he is going to explain to Jack what's wrong. He's going to take the conch, because he still has the conch, and he's going to go over and he's going to have the authority of the conch, and he's going to say, he's going to explain his situation. He actually outright in the morning said young Simon was murdered. So I guess after the hysteria, this is Piggy, after the hysteria of the night before where he's like, it was Simon's fault, it was Simon's fault, he shouldn't have done it. Now he's like, yeah, what happened? What's the grown-ups going to think? Young Simon was murdered, and there was that other kid who had the mark on his face, who's seen him since we first came here. That's the boy, the young little boy with the purple birthmark, who almost certainly was killed by the wildfire that they set. Piggy goes, I got the conch. I'm going to tell that Jack Meridew and tell him I am. And then they say, you'll get hurt. And he says, what can he do more than he has? I'll tell him what's what. You let me carry the conch, Ralph. I'll show him the one thing he hasn't got. I'm going to go with him with his conch in my hands. I'm going to go to hold it out. Look, I'm going to say, you're stronger than I am, and you haven't got asthma. You can see, I'm going to say, and with both eyes. But don't ask for my glasses back, not as a favor. I don't ask you to be a sport, I'll say, not because you're strong, but because what's right's right. Give me back my glasses, I'm going to say. You got to. So, I mean, he's basically believing that reason and law and order are still in play. Piggy. He thinks that if he just explains to Jack calmly, listen, we'll give you the fire, but I need my glasses because I'm blind, and you can see and I can't, and let's just talk it out. What Piggy obviously doesn't understand is that they're long past that. They're not going to listen to him, but he thinks they will, which is brave. I mean, I think Piggy's being very brave. He can't see, and he wants them to lead him up to the mountain where Jack and his fellow hunters are. And he says again, what more can he do than he has? Well, he can do a lot more than he has, but Piggy doesn't understand that. Now, one interesting thing is, at this point, Sam and Eric become individuals, instead of Sam Nerrick. At last, Ralph sat up straight and drew back his hair. All right, I mean, you can try if you like. We'll go with you. He'll be painted, said Sam timidly. You know how he'll be. He won't think much of us. If he gets waxy, we've had it. Ralph scowled at Sam. Dimly he remembered something Simon had said to him once by the rocks. Don't be silly, he said, and then he added quickly, let's go. And so, in other words, Sam becomes a person. He's not Sam Nerrick, he's Sam. And they agree to lead Piggy up. They try to look nice, to comb their hair. It's pathetic. Anyway, they go. And when they go, read it, I guess. And what ends up happening is they get to what they have called Castle Rock, which is so not a castle. And they go up to the castle, and they're greeted by the guard, basically. Piggy can't see anything. He's really kind of scared. and they say, "Don't worry, just stay by me." The sea is 40 feet beneath them, and there's rocks, so it's kind of dangerous. They have to go up a sharp cliff. And Piggy says, "Am I safe? I feel awful." And then they hear war cries, um, and Ralph and Roger peers over to them, and tells them to stop being silly. Piggy blows the conch. No, Ralph, sorry, blows the conch. Savages appeared, painted out of recognition, edging around the ledge toward the neck. They carried spears and disposed themselves to defend the entrance. So you notice they've lost their identity. They're just called savages. They don't even know who they are. They're painted red and white. Ralph goes on blowing the conch to try to overcome it. If you remember, the conch kind of symbolizes law, order, civilization, and he's trying to basically overcome that. So symbolically, what's going on? So when I say, that is the one thing I did want to cover. When I said, a lot of you had trouble with this. When I said what's going on literally versus what is going on figuratively. So literally is what actually happens. So what's actually going on is that just plain is the plot, the plain thing. So literally what's going on is Ralph and Piggy are walking up the cliff, and they're carrying the conch, and they're trying to blow it to get Jack to agree with them that they need the glasses back and they need to light the fire. That's what's going on literally. Figuratively, what's going on is when you see that he has the conch, and the intellect, the glasses have been stolen, that the civilization is trying to overcome barbarity, and it's failing because reason can't overpower the savagery of people. When the beast, the Lord of the Flies, has overcome, when Simon, who is kind of their heart, has been killed, civilization can't overcome it anymore. That's what's going on symbolically. So there's the literal and the figurative. And that's kind of the whole book, and that's why when I said to you earlier that this was an allegory, that's what I'm talking about. An allegory is the story on two tiers of levels. One is the actual plot, where you have a bunch of boys have landed on an island by a plane crash, and they try to survive, and they really can't because they're too little, too mature, and they kind of devolve into just savagery, basically. That's what's going on a literal level, while a war is going on. Symbolically, what's going on is they're meant to represent just our own nature. And what I talked about earlier in the first, I think in my first post, was you have the idea, two different ideas. One is that people are inherently good, and when they're born, they're innocent, and when they're children, they're innocent, and civilization makes them kind of corrupt. And then you have another idea, which is Golding, the author's idea, which is that people have evil inside them inherently. They have it inside them. That's what the Lord of the Flies was saying to Simon. I'm there with you. That's what Simon was saying. Maybe it's in all of us. It's actually the idea of many religions, that there is that inside all of us, and we must fight against that and choose God. That's the religious idea. The moral idea, without religion, you don't have to be religious to understand this. The moral and civilization idea is that we have laws in place so that we don't decay into chaos. And so that's what this whole thing is kind of exploring, is their innocent idea is not their innocent. When you think of the loss of innocence, you think of a child, a baby is innocent, and then they lose that innocence when they realize that bad things happen in the world. And that's true, but what we're talking about here is not bad things happening in the world and life being unfair, but bad things happen in our hearts, and we have to fight and struggle against that. I think pretty much everybody, I don't think you'd be human if you didn't have bad thoughts or bad urges from time to time. I mean, I just think that's human. And the struggle is to repress those. You know, you don't steal because it's bad. You don't, you don't do that because it hurts other people. A 1-year-old may not know that and might just take something because they want to take it. So that's basically what's going on here. And essentially what happens here is very disturbing, where Piggy goes up and tries to explain to them what's going on, and Ralph tries to explain what's going on, and instead what happens, that basically they're trying to say, the fire, if you don't have a fire, we'll be here the rest of our lives. And Jack doesn't really care. And Ralph says, but I have the conch. And Jack says, I don't really care that you have the conch anymore. I really don't care. And then Roger, who's kind of like the chief torturer, is up at there's this giant rock there, and they have a lever, like a stick underneath the rock. And while they're arguing, and while Ralph is accusing Jack of being a thief for stealing the fire, because he says, you could have just asked us, we would have just given you the fire. But instead, we can just give you, basically, if you keep track of something, if you have a fire in place, you can just keep it there every day. That's what people have done for thousands and thousands of years. You don't need the glasses to restart the fire. You just keep the fire going all the time, and feed the fire, and you just keep it. But instead, they steal the glasses, so that not only can they not have a fire, but Piggy can't see. So, and symbolically, if Piggy represents intellect is now blind. So that's basically what's going on. Their intelligence is blinded. And you can see that in the fact that they're painted. Their rational intelligence, civilization intelligence, that kind of intelligence is blinded. And then the disturbing, horrible thing is that Roger then takes the rock. It falls. It smashes into Piggy, who's been kind of below them. He can't see, and kills Piggy. Piggy falls, is dashed on the rocks below. The glasses they still have, the conch is shattered. Civilization is gone. Piggy is killed. And that's that. Sam and Eric are taken into Jack's tribe so that Ralph is left totally alone. Sam and Eric are like, oh, I say. They're like regular, they're trying to be civilized. And they're taken away and tortured, basically, so that they stay. Roger knows how to do this. And taken so that they stay with Jack under threat of torture. And then I keep on saying Roger. Ralph is left alone, isolated. He has nobody left. So the original leader has nobody to lead. And that's that chapter.